Well, Merritt, thank you for joining me on the podcast. We certainly are going to hopefully tuck into some of these awesome lollies that you sell and provide our communities. Before we go any further, though, my bro, can you please just tell us who you are and where you fit in our universe?
Yeah, my name is Merritt Watson. I'm the managing director of a company called Pick and Mix Lollies, and we sell lollies all over the world from here in Pukekohe.
Where's the furthest away you sell?
Oh, the better question is furthest away I've sold this week, I think. We sell, you see where expats are in the world depending on what's going where. And so I've got a regular order that goes to Macy's Lollies, goes to a guy in Nashville, Tennessee. A couple of months back, we shipped 30 pinky chocolate bars to Hamburg, Germany. Really odd ones that come out of nowhere. And so there's no limitation, and there's a lot of Kiwis that just want to taste a home.
That's right. One of your posts recently on LinkedIn was about the K-bar, and that sparked a bit of nostalgia, didn't it? Because that was the local go-to for many people, I guess, children of the 80s and 90s and maybe beyond. And I think the comment I made is I remember making mouth guards out of them, and everyone was like, "Oh, mouth guards, K-bars," and it's bad. But when I think back, it's a good memory. It's bad because it was probably really bad for your teeth. However, we did live in maybe a different time where it wasn't expected that you'd have it all the time. You might stop into your local dairy or bakery, pick up a K-bar for 20 cents, and that was your lot. Now it's like at a dairy today, you might have a super pack of, all of these types of junk and whatnot. And I guess that's a commentary on the times we live.
Yeah, and I think, it was treats back then. And I think now, like with anything, is access to some of these things are very, very easy. I mean, we're perfect example. You order online, shipped to your door. And so it's a different style of treating yourself. Not just with us, the other industries too, but it's, that nostalgia as adults, we all enjoy. And now as adults, we've grown up, we've got the money. Mum said, "Oh, no, you're not having any lollies." Well, now we're adults with the money. We're like, "Oh, I want to treat myself. Leave me alone."
And I guess one of the things I wanted to ask you, because how long have you been running your business now?
Pick and Mix just over 5 years old now.
Yeah. And I guess prior to that, what did you think you wanted to do? What was the plan that you set out to kind of, change the world, impact the world, make your fortune, all before Pick and Mix?
Ooh, that's a tricky one. It's I've always had a bit of a thing for business, entrepreneurship in general. Not necessarily great at it in the early stages, but it's always been a thing in the back of my mind. And first business I started was 2011, so started my 7th form because I did a lot of digital media design for businesses, photography, websites, social media at the time was starting to crack on, and so that was my first business. I registered a business in 2011 in my final year of school, and I didn't go to uni afterwards. I didn't go into work. My first 2 years outside of school after that was doing this business, contracting to companies.
And what were you doing?
Doing websites, photography, branding, that sort of stuff. And it was good. At the time, in my last year, contracted to my school, among many other clients and things like that. So that was my first proper official look into business, I suppose. And
did you ever go back to study, or you've just been sailing the whole way? You've been earning your degree on the road.
That's it. I without a doubt could say I could never go to uni. I couldn't do uni. I struggled at school. Sitting in a classroom, focusing, I couldn't do it. I couldn't study. I couldn't revise. It wasn't for me. I sort of go, what's the point? Whereas practical learning or teaching myself how to do things, great. If it took my interest. If it didn't, it was like, this is pointless. Really shocking way to think, but. Yeah.
But that was, what is it about that teaching yourself that you think, where'd that come from? Is that something you've identified as you've kind of grown a bit older to be like, man, these are some things about me that I need to try and understand, because I'm assuming, what was school like? You mentioned going to high school and stuff like that. Was that a good journey? Were you kind of a good student?
I was a good student. I was a good student, a respectable student. But the learning side of it, I struggled with. I sort of the lower end class, and like I said, studying or doing what you need to pass certain years, that I struggled with. And so as an adult, I was diagnosed, well, two years ago, diagnosed with ADHD. And only off the back of seeing stuff on TikTok and understanding, because I always thought ADHD was, oh, that's the disruptive kid in class, right?
Mm.
I was like, that's not me, because I wasn't disruptive and I just struggled to focus. It wasn't interesting. And so being diagnosed with that and then medicated for that, and now living a life with some focus when you use it properly is scary, because I think if I'd had that in the past, would my school time be different?
Mm.
Would I have focused and studied and done exams and then gone, okay, I'm going to go to university and do this? But I knew at the end, or I knew by sixth form, it was like, I probably shouldn't be here for seventh form, and I probably shouldn't. I did, but I probably shouldn't go to uni. There's nothing there that interests me.
Mm.
And so it's kind of hat off to my parents, who saw that I had a knack for digital media design, and they were the ones that bought me my first laptop in year 11. And I was very lucky to sort of learn and tinker and do stuff like that with Dad's business, and then backing me in that first couple of years outside of school to be like, well, make a thing of it, let's do it, rather than, oh no, you go to uni, you go do this, you go do that. They humor's the right word. They humored it. They facilitated that, and I'm very, very lucky for that.
Are they both still around?
They are.
Are they pretty proud of where you've kind of popped up in the world? Because they must be, right? Like, it's working. You've got this
I'd
team.
like to think so.
Yeah. What do you guys talk about it?
Yeah, I think it's a weird. In this day and age, I don't think many people would outwardly say that. I don't know if parents would, to their adult kids. But I'm very fortunate in which I work with Mum all day, every day, in this business selling lollies. It was her side hustle to start with, and then it grew, and together with her and my wife, it's now a family business. We've grown it to where it is. So we're lucky on that front, and I think her and I look at each other every couple of days and go, God, what do we get ourselves into?
Yeah.
And it's cool now that I've got certain expertise in certain parts of what we do, that I can then assist Dad in what he does. Certain things like, well, is that the appropriate way we should be going about it? I said, well, I think you need to ask that question, and so it's very cool to get to a point now where it's actually a two-way street with your parents on certain expertise and guidance, and I think that says it to me, of a respect and a knowledge being passed two ways, which is kind of cool.
So you mentioned over our coffee earlier before we were recording, not to me but to the lovely person at the coffee shop, that you've got one little one on the way.
Yeah.
And I guess what I want to maybe highlight is the importance of parents being there to, call it mentorship or having your back, but they humoured your where they could see you were going, right? Like carrying some energy and moving into a space. And yeah, it's interesting because you brought up before, where would we be if certain things haven't happened? And that's like a minefield, isn't it? Because, I think about myself, and I just thought I was dumb in school, but it was dyslexia, and I didn't even know, because it was like the early 90s, and I was at Auckland Grammar as well, so there was no room for kind of losers. And I was just like, why can't I understand what the hell's going on?
Yeah.
But the interesting thing is, would I trade it? Probably not, because it gave me this other skill where I had to try and get Merritt to like me, so he'll tell me what's on the damn board.
Yep.
And if I can just know what's on the damn board, I can solve the next problem. And now I live in a world where talking is a currency.
Yep.
And how you communicate is huge. We have whole systems around it. And I'm like, whew, man, if it was easy for me, I don't know if I'd be who I am today.
I think for a large amount of people in that same situation is from an early age, or from that age, it's problem solving, and you had to problem solve. And, that's what everyone else is doing. How do I get to that point? Sometimes you can get to that. If I can just understand what's on the board, I can then proceed and we can get there. But actually, could I come to the same result, if not better, on a different path? And I think that's a massive part of what's going on at the moment in the world. And that I think probably the likes of AI is going to have a real massive effect, like a huge effect in stopping that. we went through school and you would do maths and you would have to use your head to do the basic maths, and something more complicated might require a calculator. But you had to think, and it was that train of thought and how you thought then sort of built the way you thought or inspected and assessed other things in life, not just maths. I fear that fast forward to today with AI taking such a massive part of that, obviously great leaps and bounds, but are the kids of today not thinking?
Yeah.
Are they taking that easy route? We've all got a mobile phone with the answers. Yeah, what does that mean in terms of thinking and critical thinking and assessing situations and just that further process? I don't know what tomorrow brings.
No, and I'm conflicted because I have a very soft spot for AI because I know how I would have used it then.
Yeah.
You know, I know the prompts that I still get it to help me with, and I know what I would have done. I would have had it running on that board, and I would have said, explain to me what's happening, and had my earpiece in.
Put it in my language.
Yeah, that's right, and keep trying until it clicks,
Yeah.
But I do understand what you're saying. You have the power at your pocket for a God, and, actually, I don't observe many young people using it because you've always got that power, and so it's not until you don't, which is the interesting thing of life. But I guess they will find their way too. It's easy to look back and think, oh yeah, no, this is kind of mapped out. But if I think to myself, I really don't think that I was starting to come online to the early version of Will until kind of 21, 22. And then I really didn't kick into this version of me until 2 years ago.
Yeah.
If you had met me then, you would have seen similar me, but I was more in cruise mode. I wasn't really interested in much, and I wouldn't have, prompted, say, come on, let's catch up, let's have a coffee, let's go and do a podcast. I'd be like, it's weekend, let's chill out.
Yeah.
And so there are parts of me like that, but I think what I'm experiencing, and maybe you get a glimpse into it too, is time doesn't stop, and I don't want to be doing, I hope in another 10 years, if we reach out, it's to go for a hike or, just chill out or go mentor some other people, not still trying to crack the code.
That's it. And I think up until now, there's been a lot of people, a lot of industries who, think, I'm trying to build this thing that's going to be the rest of my life. I don't think that's a case anymore. I think be realistic. Build something great, do it for however long it intrigues you, and then let it go and move on. It's you don't have to do that one thing, climb that corporate ladder, be in that one job for the rest of your life and show that dedication. And I don't think people's attention spans sort of work that way anymore.
Yeah.
And won't as the new generation comes through. But yeah, it's a funny changing world.
Dude, and I think about your product too. You actually make something and you can hold it and touch it. And I wonder for you when it comes time to let it go, if you will. Because I guess we're moving into an age where there's concepts now being built into products, but they're digital products,
Yep.
And maybe it's a little bit like if you had $100 cash, I've got $100 cash, but if you see the 100 on your bank account, it's not that different to an extra zero.
Yep.
It's not that actually different to another zero.
Yep.
And it's weird because you can look at it and it just looks like numbers, but if they put the money in your hand, you'll be like, wow.
I think in general, you talk about that. There's overall, people have become very desensitized when it comes to money and using money. And when it's seen electronically in a bank account, you're right. Where that decimal point is doesn't, it's money's money. I think what it comes down to is their access. I want product A. Do I have access to the funds to pull that one off? No, I don't. Oh, well, I probably shouldn't get it. That was traditionally what people would go for. And, you see the rise of buy now, pay laters and Afterpay being the most prominent one. And that's scary because I've seen so many people use it. We have it offered on our own business, and we have it because if we don't, competitors will. And as a business, I would encourage it. But as a user, I will never use it.
Yeah.
I will never use it because it has another level of disconnect from people spending their money and using their money and desensitizing. Gone are the days where you have $100 note and all of a sudden you see that broken down and you did further and I have $10. I have $10 to survive me till payday.
Yeah.
I need to be very wise on how I use that. There's nothing else physically available. I can't call on credit.
Yeah.
And so people will be a bit more mindful. And it's a technique my wife and I have used is sometimes you just go, right, here is physical money. That's us for the week. And then that's it. Because it's worth it. It works. But yeah, I fear those that don't have that level of control and where this leads to in the modern age and AI and now that they talk about there's a lot of movement with Shopify, which is an e-commerce platform. Our e-commerce platform runs our store, that they have inputted their compatibility with the likes of ChatGPT and things like that. So very soon, and I'd say I would hazard a guess and say it's going to be within months. Hey, ChatGPT, what's the best place to buy a baseball cap? Well, these 3 sites are fantastic. Would you like us to pursue that for you? Yep. Yes, please. That one looks fantastic. Cool. Executes it, pays for it, ships it to you. That's where we're sort of at, and that's the scary next part.
And you're talking about 3 months, which is a blink.
That's a blink.
Yeah.
I think, people saw that code being put in ChatGPT 6 months ago.
Yeah.
And then I think I've seen how quickly people adopt certain softwares and things like that overnight. And I think as soon as that is released, that's a new age in spending and shopping and money management.
And are you ready to move fast if needed? Yeah, that's interesting because you're the decision maker.
Yeah.
But not everyone is, right? And there was parts of that, before I guess I do what I do now, I used to be involved in the media industry.
Yep.
Just as a maker, the product maker for the, distribution. Mm-hmm. And I remember in 2011 talking to my bosses then about, hey, what's up with YouTube team? We've got to do something. And they're like, I don't know if I remember it correctly or if I'm romanticizing it, but I remember some bigwig standing up and he said, listen, done the data. And people don't want to turn the camera on themselves. And he went like this, like the vlog. It wasn't even out then. Casey Neistat in that way.
Yeah.
But he did the vlog and he said, they won't do it. We've got a space. And look, you do have a space. It's just people did turn the camera. And now we are still going on about, user-generated content and all these things. And it's very interesting. I feel like, the way I've been trying to conceptualize AI and be interested to run this past you is like, maybe something like a 3-3-3. And this is going to make me sound weird, but I think I read something once or saw something, because I can't read, that our human body is measured in these really great ways. There's perfect measurements. And one of them is like a 3-3-3. And I should chat GPT what those measurements are. But I was thinking about what used to take 3 years probably is going to take like 3 months. Yeah. What took 3 months will take 3 days, 3 days, 3 hours. And the hard bit is we should put the time as maybe what do you want to do? And that's what I'm interested in. Like if you and I go all right in business, what would it be like to wake up and have nothing to do that day? Do you ever fantasize about that?
At least 3 times in the last 7 days.
Really?
I'd say. Yeah, it was funny actually. My mother-in-law's here from the UK visiting, so she's here for 30 days. And our daughter, she goes off to daycare in the morning, and then my mother-in-law she's got nothing. She's just relaxing. She's on holiday. She's retired. She's just pottering around the house. And I thought, that sounds lovely. That sounds lovely. Not, got nothing to do. I might go for a coffee. I might go watch a movie. I might go do this. I might, no one's calling on you. No one's, none of that. That's the goal. But also on the flip side of that is I know I could probably survive a week before I need to do something again. Yeah.
And I do think about that too, am I addicted to this busyness?
Yeah.
Like I got this on today and I got to do that. And I get a little kick thinking that most people are kind of chilling and me and you are here podcasting. Yep. It's like, that's who's going to make it. The ones who give up some time to invest wisely,
yep.
Either monetarily or whatever we call this, and involved in each other's lives. And that's how you kind of get forward. But at the same time, could we still just rest? Probably. Would we get some benefit? Probably. you know?
Well, that's the thing is does rest then bring on more progress afterwards?
Mm.
But on to that point we were talking about of you're not going to spend 50 years in a single career. Work on something, progress yourself, have the self-awareness to go, I think I'm there. I think I'm peaking. Whether it's in business or employment or I think I need to call it because, you're right, all that spare time, in business at least, when you're building a business, all that spare time goes into building that and bettering the business and doing right by customers if that's the style of business, And I think about our setup and my wife's answering customer emails at 11 o'clock at night. She doesn't need to, but it just gives her a leg up tomorrow. It means she can come in and deal with other things rather than customer emails or, and from a customer point of view, fantastic because they're getting replies immediately. But that is not sustainable as much as they say, hey, leave your laptop at work, just chill. That's not sustainable. So at some point we will draw a line and go, I think that's our time done sort of thing. So I think a lot of people need to have that self-awareness.
Look, I started asking you about the trajectory, and we'll go back to that because I think that's interesting. We've talked about you working in your last couple of years of school, and then you came out and did that, and I'm keen to follow that line. But let me just ask you one question about today. Are you mentorable now? Like, do you put anyone kind of ahead of you who's got some sage advice if you're just kind of like a bit tyrannical in your thinking? And I'm not saying you are. I just get the sense, to me, you come across like really competent, and that's fantastic. And I guess I'm not saying you need mentorship. I'm just exploring, like, you may have needed at certain points, but I get the feeling that your trajectory is there and you've just got to make iterations to get there. And I really am fascinated with that because not everything needs to be, we're going to scrap the system and start again. You've worked hard over the last 5 years to put this thing in. And now you can just almost ride it to the glory, And what would be wrong with that? In my opinion, nothing. So maybe asking if you're mentorable, if it's even a real word, is probably not the right question. But do you know? But
I know where you're coming from. Yeah. No, I would like to think I am.
Yeah.
And it would probably be in the later part of this 5 years of running this business now that grew and we had staff and you got to worry about accounts and payroll and HR and all that sort of stuff. I would like to think I know everything. I'm well aware I don't. I'm very lucky that in our business there's myself who I come up with silly ideas and I want to go gung-ho all the time. And I've got the likes of my business partners, which are my wife and my mum.
Right.
And they are the sensible ones. They are the ones that have to put these stupid ideas into motion. They have to operate. They have to be viable in terms of, well, that's all good and well, but we don't have 150 staff to pull that one off. So rein it in. And so lots and lots of arguments over the years where essentially it's required me to back down because I am being a little bit silly about that. And so that is, I feel like I've learned that well because it was a massive flaw from my point of view. Oh, we don't want to do this. It was like, well, just rein it in, tie-ho.
Yeah.
It's probably not viable. You need to think about it. So I would like to think I am mentorable. I would like to think that I would take on any advice that I received in the relevant areas. I think for me, it would need to be relevant of what I'm doing. Yeah. I would need an interest. I think that's probably my key part.
Yeah.
But I don't think I'm not arrogant enough to be like, no, you can't teach me.
It's awesome though, because it's got to be like, who are the two people that you would have to listen to? Wife and mum.
Yep.
So you're kind of gangster in some ways because it's like, well, you better either have given me life or help me create life if you want to give me advice.
That's it. Yes, mum. Okay, not a problem.
But look, I think what's cool is like, I want to really support that visionary too, because that is the courage that a lot of people try and summon when they're trying to do this thing. And the thing is quite hard. Ask people to give you money.
Yep.
Like it's probably one of the oldest things ever, like you give me a bit of your stuff and I'll give you something.
Can I give you some form of value for your spend? Yeah.
And that is, that is why it's the hardest thing to do, to, live life on your terms, because most people are tied to this. So the fact that you're kind of chasing it, and wanted to do it on your terms, I think is awesome, and that should be championed. And I think in a little community like ours too, that should be championed more.
Yeah.
Because, so like we were saying at coffee, we're not coming into like really easy years. We're coming into only great ideas will work.
Yep.
And that is a pretty wild concept that you and I didn't grow up with. What we grew up with is slow and steady wins the race.
Yep.
And we're now not prepared to go to war. Well, you kind of are, but I want to hang out with you because I want to get prepared to go to war.
Yeah.
And I mean this war of our minds, of our hearts, of our offerings, and this internet and these AI agents, and it's like, far out. This is a whole new world, and it happened right in front of us.
That's it. And it's the shift in resources, I think, is this big change. And we saw it with marketing. We've seen it with marketing, and AI is now sort of doing the same thing, which is gone are the days where you needed big marketing budgets. You couldn't compete with big time companies. You couldn't compete with Spark or, those guys on marketing campaigns and adverts and influencers and all that sort of thing. Now you can.
Yeah.
They can't tell a story as well as the founder of a business. They can't tell the story as the employees. It's very hard to believe a polished setup like that. Whereas you with a mobile phone, talking about your business, what you do, what you're about, it's very easy to get on board with that. And so marketing, we've been there, it's happening right now, it's fantastic. AI, the same thing. Gone are the days where you need to pay developer costs to produce an app that you think might be worthwhile. The resources to get products or packaging. A lot of people say negative things about Temu and the effect that it has on many businesses, but I judged some young enterprise scheme pitches recently from some high school students, and it was very clear that they've all used Temu to source the entry-level components to a business, whether it be a product-based business, business cards, packaging, shipping material, because they just need to buy 10. It was low cost, low entry, low barriers, perfect. And that's the changing time it is. You don't have to commit to a print run of 10,000 units. You don't have to do all these different things. $100 and a bit of passion will take you a long way.
Let me just ask you a question on lollies. Do you have to be passionate about your business? Are you passionate about your lollies?
100%.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's a tricky world. Lollies are very easy to sell, but at the end of the day, many of our products you can buy cheaper elsewhere. Supermarkets have sweet treats and lollies, and we sell a lot of items that they do as well. So why do people come back and purchase from us? Why are they supporting our journey in our business? And it's the community we've built, it's the service we provide, it's the range that we acquire. And so I use us as an example when I try and, talking with mates and, but people can get it. It's not a race to the bottom. You're not pricing to be the cheapest in the market. If you present a valuable commodity or a service or a product and do it well, can you provide value? That's the aim. And lollies, it's very easy to get. It's a fun product.
Do you think that's where a lot of people kind of go wrong? They're looking for the next big idea, but they don't actually spend time. And I see this in the podcast space, right? I will try and encourage people to at least start thinking about a podcast with something that they really love, like something that maybe is a hobby, because you have a passion for it. You don't know why you enjoy something, and you can kind of start leaning towards that, and that might push you down that pathway. And I guess you were talking about judging these high school students. Did you see that in what they were doing, or did it kind of get lost in, we've got to look for the next cool business idea?
Two very sets of two different trains of thought were operating. There were some that were going down that path of we're selling a product, or how can we, what would be popular? What do we think we could be, very, very popular? And the concern is there's always short-term popularity. Something goes viral, something's very popular, done and dusted. And then there were some other side of that conversation, which some people were making software or a service-based product, and you looked and you went, okay, you've thought about this, you've thought about where this would carry you. And I took one look and went, if a teacher or a parent or something turned around and said, here you go, here's 50 grand, I believe in that. Like the sky's the limit. So, there were two sets of students that pitched AI-based softwares that they'd built. And I think from the opening line, I went, wow. One was a revision tool for NCA, AI revision tool. So, I'm NCA level 2 English, and it would present a bunch of sample questions for you to revise on. You'd present answers to those, and it would turn around and go, look, you've not structured that correctly. We think more mention of this. It would tell you why you wouldn't, or what you would have got as a mark, or what could have got you to that next level. And I immediately looked at that and went, if I had that, my time at school would have been very different. And so there was a lot of two-way thinking on that front with those young enterprise schemes.
I guess I've been thinking about business in terms of, you ask people for money, so maybe traditionally we think that you solve a problem for them. What problems do lollies solve? I guess I want to ask you that just from person to person, because, my household buys lollies. I'd like to think that my household now buys pick and mix lollies. But you solve someone's problem with this. What, not in your data set, but in your heart, is your answer?
I tell you what, this year more than ever, because I've been running our retail store quite a few days, and people come in and just want to pick me up.
Yeah,
they just want a bit of a positive shift in their day or their week or their month. And what was a very sort of sparse conversation that we would have last year, just been a hell of a week, and I want a $5 bag of lollies that just changed my day. It's now far more common, and people want. It doesn't matter your budget. If you've got $5 to spend, you've got $500 to spend. If you want some form of sweet treat or something to improve your day, whatever it is, and it doesn't necessarily have to be lollies. It could be anything in the world that, for you, has the ability to flip your week into a positive. You find a lot of people searching for that. And for lollies, doesn't matter your age, whether you like lollies or not, it has the ability to improve your mental health. It's a very, very clear way to boost your day.
That's awesome, man. I love how life's so tricky, because it's like everything. Let's talk about a good relationship and a bad relationship. Yep. You're on a tightrope. You could be in the most loving relationship. I'm coming up 20 years in my marriage, and I'm so effing lucky that I happen to be with this lady, and she's just good. And so am I on most days, and we make it work, and it doesn't feel like work. And we don't work together so well in our business, but we work together in life really well. But I do know people that there was just a little tinker on the other side, and it's brutal, and it's hard, and it's messy and yucky, and it's the same things with everything, isn't it? That
100%.
The treat can be the addiction, and I guess that's our job, and that will give us meaning. And I don't know if AI will help us with that. You'd like to think it could. Maybe it can start talking us down off the cliff. Yep. And that wouldn't be a bad thing. If there's not enough of that to do already, then why couldn't we integrate something smart? But again, does it tinker to the other side and start talking us off the cliff? And that is, there's plenty scarier things to worry about. But let me go back. So you did a couple of years outside of school, and then run us through how you're starting to move towards where we are today.
So, I left school. Last year of school, I went into business for myself, and I did a lot of digital media design, websites, photography, things like that. And I did that for a couple of years. And obviously, self-employed, you've got to, look out, find the clients, get the work, get paid. That's how you the old.
Still what I do.
That's the one. So one of Dad's businesses is transport trucks and stuff like that. And so one summer he went, oh, we're putting a bunch of guys through a truck license. Did you want to get a truck license? I went, yeah, it sounds like a bit of fun, and got put through a truck license, fell in love with that. And I did that for a couple of years. And as a young kid, earning very good money in the trucking industry, single, putting all that money away, I went, oh, well, I'll go traveling. So I traveled a better part of the States and Europe and fell in love with London and went, I want to go live there. So I moved to London and met my now wife, and then came back. And so COVID hit. Mum, who'd been a stay-at-home mum for 35 years, all us boys had moved out. She wanted something to do with her day. And so she said, I want to start an online business of some form, something a couple of hours a week just to tutor away at. And obviously with my background doing websites and photography and stuff like that, because I'd always did it throughout the years, regardless of truck driving, being in London, I'd always...
You did that over in London too?
No, I worked in hospitality. And you move up the ranks in hospitality, very high turnover of staff. So I ended up managing a bar over there. And
did that teach you a bit about running staff now?
Huge amount.
Interesting. So that's something to celebrate, isn't it? The fact that you were away learning these other skills.
Yep.
Yeah.
I was very, very lucky, actually. Like I said, hospitality, high turnover of staff over, I think, any country, London more so. And so I worked in an Aussie sports bar, which for anyone that's been over the UK, they'll probably know the Walkabout brands. Mm-hmm. And so we had a venue on right on the Thames, Temple Station, and we had 50 staff at that site, 1,000-person capacity. We had 20 door staff, and it's a fascinating realm to live in when standard uniform for that door staff is a stab-proof vest, and so and on Saturday nights, big nights, you'd be required to have 4 managers running the joint, and you'd be in constant communication with the Metropolitan Police because that's just the go. And so very lucky to learning on someone else's dime how to manage. And I had a really good GM of that site who, took me under his wing and taught me a lot of these things. And, what would you like me to do? Well, he said, well, just look. What do you see as being this issue here? Oh, okay, we'll deal with that. Let's go. And, I was very, very lucky to have that experience in the UK.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's an interesting thing, isn't it? That it's maybe suggesting that we can't always strategically plan what we'll learn and how we'll learn it. And that you've and maybe that's one of the hard bits I think about my young boys. They're not so young anymore, 19 and 17. But I can't say I'm so excited about them traveling because they're not bringing it up to me because they live in today's world where your dopamine is tied to these swipes and flicks, and what learning is taking place there, what mentoring is taking place there, pretty much jack shit, right? I mean, there'll be some, but not the
worldly knowledge.
Yeah.
And I can't remember who I was talking to the other day. That is the scary part of what's going on in the world is a big Kiwi rite of passage was the OE. You save up, you do the OE, you travel, you have that great experience. The level of unemployment, the lack of liquidity in the market and the economy, people can't save for that sort of thing. So as the number of people going on those OEs drop, probably. Yeah. And I don't know about you, but you can have a conversation with somebody in a street and tell quite quickly if they've ever left the country or not. And if that is a luxury, I appreciate that. But those that have left New Zealand, travelled, seen another country outside the Pacific, tend to come back with an appreciation of the country.
100%.
And on top of all the world's problems, I fear having less and less people getting that experience, what that effect will be domestically.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. It was called OE, which is overseas experience. It's not like it is now, which is OJ, like our overseas job.
Yeah.
We're leaving for work. We used to be leaving for an experience, which work was part of it, but it was so that you could
means to an end, wasn't it?
Yeah. And I mean, this is the data set that no one talks about, right? And the investment that is not happening. And yeah, it's kind of maybe something that where we are now, it's easy to brush over. But we both had that experience, Mine was through rugby, so I got to travel the world playing a okay level of rugby, and I was an okay player. But I guess then New Zealand with rugby was just so, wow, you're from New Zealand, you can do anything, And even that's changing now. We're not the best, and again, it happened right in front of our eyes, and so it is difficult, I guess, to think about how to move forward in these spaces. And I don't know, man, I do get the sense that like some of those systems were flawed anyway because they were so scaled. They were huge. And like what you do now on LinkedIn, what I do now on LinkedIn, I would like to think gets people to trust us more than any PwC or any massive firm can do.
Yeah.
And they want to do business with you, and they'll do it. And all you've got to work out is how many do I need to sustain my career? And if I can show value in that and the books are healthy, then that's a business.
Exactly.
It doesn't have to be a business just because we're on the New Zealand stock market or whatever it is,
No.
Yeah, so that's very interesting. So like, what's next for you, man? Like with a lot of the guests, I'll tell you something interesting, like we'll go through something that happened in their life, and then, people that came along and kind of put them back on a trajectory, and that's including myself too. But when I'm talking to you, I'm like, oh, this seems like it's kind of going to work, and you're going to make it work, and you're going to learn what you don't know and implement that. And I guess acknowledge all of the things that you've been able to get in your life and leverage them and go ahead and build a really strong business. So does that kind of sound accurate? I think that sounds accurate.
Pretty accurate.
Yeah.
My downfall will be how I can harness my interest. It's something I've struggled with my whole life.
What does that mean?
As in, if I'm interested, I'm engaged.
Okay.
If I'm not, you're not going to get the full whack out of me.
What would be something you're not interested in?
If with anything that I've done, even in business, it's while this is fun and exciting and engaging, and I can make progress and I can make rapid progress, that interests me. It keeps me engaged.
Gotcha.
And it is something that I've dealt with, like I said, my whole life, and I've now known my limitations on that front. And so when you feel yourself losing interest, either you create that interest, you work on a different part within that, and Picamix is fantastic on that front because there's just so many different avenues we can go with.
Yeah.
And so I can keep my interest there for a very, very long time. Very lucky to. But that's what currently interests me. There'll probably come a time where I'm not interested anymore, and knowing that limits that when I'm not interested, the chances of me coming to work and sitting blankly at my desk every day.
Yeah.
Was no use to anybody. So having that know-how to call it, say, maybe we've run our course. I don't feel like a pivot again. Oh, well, let's go do something else exciting.
Yeah. Interesting. Sometimes I like to frame up, the bit, what would your thoughts or advice or mentorship be for someone who is earlier in their journey? But that doesn't always have to be a young person, like I'm super early in my journey when I'm taking it seriously. So I guess I have some advantages because I'm of the age where people do like to give money to people that they think are older, like no one, I'm the same. I would like to think I'm the same. I had entrepreneurial ideas at 20, but who the hell wants to give money to a 20-year-old, It's much easier if you're a bit older, I think. But at the same time, you're running against time. And so there's a challenge there. Do you have any general kind of mentorship advice for people? And it could go with any way that you want to on this, I guess. Maybe it's something that we've talked about in our chat together, just something that works, that if someone was to follow that, it would do more good than harm. I feel like a lot of the advice, I've done lots of podcasts over the years, and my kind of analysis on passing on information and knowledge it normally only works if things are good. And I would consider advice being something that even if the wheels fall off, it needs to work then,
100%.
But I don't really pin myself on that. I guess I would just like to try and, in the spirit of a chat,
Yep.
What would conjure when I speak like this to you?
There's, and I'm gonna quote somebody else, and you get people roll their eyes. There is a Alex Hormozy quote that I, over the past couple of years, come to realize actually means a lot of things that I now sort of factor in with a lot of what I do. And one of his quotes was, "Businesses tend to fail from indigestion, not starvation." And that's something that, for me, relates. I get bored, I pivot. I get bored, I pivot. I get bored, do something. Pick a Mix grew very quickly through COVID. And when you pick up staff and your family's involved, you need to be smarter and not pivot, not overstep, not purchase too much stock. You need to do the basics and get the basics down pat and commit to that and get those going. It's very easy to go gung-ho and go, right, here's the $100,000 piece of equipment and this and that and that and that. Businesses suffer from indigestion, not starvation. That tends to be the killer. And so to focus in on one thing and have a good crack at that and try and make it work. Don't go gung-ho and buy all the pieces to the puzzle and think that that's going to do what you want. But also, if that failure happens, it happens. Take those learnings and move on. I think most successful businessmen in the world have had many, many failures, and you learn. I learn more from having been backed into a corner and feeling the walls closing in on you than you do from success. Success blinds you. This is easy. Anyone can do this. It's not another cliche quote, but diamonds are created under pressure, aren't they? And I think that's where you learn the most. So that's what I'd say is the future is evolving very, very quickly. The access to starting these sort of things and getting into this world is very, barriers are very low.
Yeah.
Have a crack.
Yeah.
Commit to it. Try and make it work. If it fails, it fails. Take that learnings and do better. I know that I could start. I couldn't do Pick and Mix again at a quick rate, but I know taking all my learnings from Pick and Mix, marketing, running a business, web design, paid ads, all that sort of stuff, I could, whether this is arrogance or not, I think I could start a similar style business of selling products online and get it to the same size in a quarter of the time because there's no learning involved. I learnt that. So that's where I sit on those.
Well, I think just to add to that I hope we move into a world where you don't have to preface great advice with, you were setting us up to not roll our eyes, but that's the country we live in too, where everyone's like, oh, what do you know?
Yeah.
Well, it's like, enough, buddy, because we're moving into some crazy times. I don't know if you kind of followed along, and I love exactly what you're saying. And, I personally like that Hormozy dude. Not everything about him, but he's a doer. And I think there's something in this world about not just a sayer. We're very good at kind of check out the YouTube comments on anything, there's plenty of sayers out there, but doers worth their weight in gold too. And so, I think the challenge we've all got is how do we get to learn more from people like you who, just quietly go about winning. And, I have personally learnt a lot, and I hope everyone watching and listening will pick and mix their bits of information that they can take into their life, and that's perfect. It's like sometimes I'm conflicted with the name 1 Minute Mentor. Why did I choose that? Because it's not 1 minute conversation, but I'd like to think that you've said something, maybe it's in around a 1 minute duration that someone's like, boom, that's what I needed to hear.
That's sometimes that is all that is needed to kick somebody's sort of brain into going for it.
Awesome. Well, I hope we'll do many more podcasts because I think that greedily I'd like to learn more from you, but I think I could try and get into your interest side of your brain to deliver more good information. So awesome, man. Where can people go to check out Pick and Mix?
Pickandmix.co.nz. That's the easiest way. We ship all around the world.
You're on Facebook, X, Instagram, Pinterest, is it?
Yep.
Jeepers, you're on YouTube, TikTok, and LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Buddy, you're everywhere.
The modern day of hedging your bets. we had our Instagram account taken down for a wee while, and so not all your eggs in one basket.
And if I had one final question, and you could only choose one lolly from one of your ranges, and it was all you had on your little island there, what would you take with you, buddy?
There's a lolly called a filled strawberry and cream. It's a large, gummy, jelly-filled lolly. Comes out of Spain, gets shipped to New Zealand in a plastic tub because it's got to be really cared for. Next level. Absolute next level, to the point that if any of our customers watch this, they'll be in the comments going, yeah. We sell many of them. Those are incredible.
Awesome. Thanks, bro. Appreciate your time.
Likewise.